Good morning. Welcome to Unity Longmont Spiritual Center on the 14th of January, 2024. We are gathered on a very cold day with our warm hearts, and we welcome James Timmons as our guest speaker today, and we have Christina Hildebrandt to provide her beautiful music, and we will start with Christina, please. Thank you, Christina. Beautiful. It's at this time that we go into prayer by taking a breath together, being fully aware of our bodies and our minds and our sacred hearts. Beloved presence, we gather today on a cold, cold January day outside. So grateful for the warmth indoors and the warmth that is shared between us. We each are open to guidance. We each are open to increasing our compassion for ourselves and others. We each are present to this moment, present to each other, present to spirit. And when we feel called, we are ready. We're ready to respond. It may be a small thing like saying hello to a neighbor. It may be something larger like caring for a beloved. We are sustained through love. We trust divine order and our own faith. And so it is. And we will hear from Christina again. As always, Christina, thank you for that gorgeous music. So let us open our hearts and minds to James Timmons, who is our guest speaker today. Welcome, James. I'm looking forward to hearing of your experience and your perspective.
Thank you so much, David. My gosh, talk about a hard act to follow. That was so beautiful, Christina. Thank you so much. I guess, well, my name is James Timmons, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I go to Unity of Minneapolis there, and my senior minister is Pat Williamson. We have two other associates, and I really have enjoyed my stay at Unity there. I've been an on and off member since 2000, but I settled into the church in Minnesota here since 2017 and have been a regular participant of a lot of different things. And right as you walk in the door to our church, there's a big sign up there that says, "Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here." And I absolutely adore that. And I hope all of you feel welcome as I have in Unity. Um, you know, that sign to me speaks of acceptance and connection with other people. And for me, guys, that just wasn't in the cards for many years. I um I had well, I'm a sober I've been sober for a long time, and um I've been fully in the maintenance stage of a serious mental health concern for many years now. But before that, acceptance and connection with other people just wasn't there, whether it was for them or whether it was for me. It just wasn't there. Spent a lot of lonely years in my cup, so to speak, and I made rounds to psychiatric hospitals, jails, and institutions. And um, to be here today and be given such a beautiful honor to share my experience is really, that's part of my miracle. That's part of the miracle I have been able to experience in Unity. And because of the acceptance and the connection that I've been able to have with so many people here. And today I thought maybe I would come from an angle. Well, I would come from an angle of my recovery as it pertains to um, the five principles of unity, because they definitely have played a major part in that. But I'd also like to discuss the idea. My grandpa used to say that if you were able to take a screen projector behind the podium of a person giving a sermon, and that projector would broadcast the thoughts and images and things that come to mind for each one of the parishioners. Well, there would be a different set of pictures and ideas that would be broadcasted, because we're coming from our own individual experiences. And I think that's really important. I think that's something that we should always honor and know, that the human side of our existence is just as sacred as the spiritual side. Um, when I honor and try to grow from my human side, I feel like that's when I'm coming into alignment more with God's will for me. Um, and discovering who that person is, and acting with integrity and in accordance to those ideas is what has been very important for me. Um, but I didn't always know who that was. Um, and I discovered through recovery and through unity that, the first couple of principles, I looked at them up at the board, and I thought they were in order, of a certain order. But it was really taught to me here in Unity that the first two principles are actually describing a state of being, while the following three principles are a state of doing. And with me, that has been, I didn't start with the first two principles. I followed a set of I studied I followed a program of action, and that's where I wound up. So for let me review the we'll start at 5 because I think I went through them backwards. Um, actually, and that it states through thoughts, words, and actions, we live the truth we know. And the way it's written with a capital T. So when they speak of truth, they're talking about absolute truth in that sentence. I don't know what that absolute truth is. I'm always in a constant state of evolution and spiritual evolution, and discovering what the truth is seems to be for me and for the people around me. So, but I noticed that if I was to make that capital T truth into a small truth, that was true for me whether I was in recovery or out of recovery. It's just I didn't the truth for me was wacky when I was growing up, and there were some things and principles I developed and lived by that weren't healthy. And I had to come to an understanding of why that was so and why that it wasn't healthy. And so I could develop a new set of principles to work by. And um, my dad always loved to talk to me about my attitude. He always talked to me about my attitude, and I would tell him, Dad, there are medical reasons why I act the way I do. And he would say, James, I know that, but I can't do anything about that. So, um, what I've discovered is that there were certain actions that I could do to improve my attitude. And guys, I've been through a lot of work, a lot of personal work, and and um, and what happened was is I focused on taking positive actions because my thinking was screwed up. I had to take positive, constructive action so my thinking would straighten itself out and I could express myself more positively through my interactions and words. But it started with the actions for me, and those actions came from really well-meaning people from both the professional sense and from my family and my friends in recovery. Um, as I came along, um, through it tradition or principle 4 says through prayer and meditation we align our heart mind with God. Denials and affirmation are tools that we use. And when I first started my connection and journey with spirit, my teacher taught me that, James, you do not have to wait to pray and meditate. It does not take a special time or a special place to pray and meditate. And he suggested that during your day, when any thought of gratitude or happiness comes up, say thank you, God. And and if a fear comes up and a negative feeling comes up, say something like, God, please remove that from me and help me act like one of your kids. And and that's I call that today, I call that walking prayer, because I don't keep my prayers and my meditation in the house. I take it with me and it walks with me wherever I go. um I became a prayer chaplain recently for my church in Minneapolis, and they do affirmative prayer, and it's really stressed that you do affirmative prayer. And I do when I serve other people, but I like to believe that the structure isn't as important for me as the intent and the feeling behind it. It can be a prayer petition if it's a sincere one. And like I was taught as I became a prayer chaplain, that there are all prayers are valid if they're sincere. But I like to keep it short and simple and consistent when I pray and meditate. I had a friend ask me, James, how do you keep a consistent meditation? And I think the best answer I could give him was that you don't make it complicated. There are some times that I'll plug into um, meditation that is really long and involved, and it's a guided meditation. And there are times that I will just take a few minutes after I read a meditative reading to just take in my surroundings and notice the car driving by, notice the heat that just kicked on, notice the creaking of the upstairs, walking upstairs, and just to try to take it all in for a few minutes. That can be a very simple and easy way, and it can help me be consistent with meditation when I don't want it to be long and involved. Um, let's see. The second principle is um, our essence is of God, therefore we are inherently good. This God essence was fully expressed in Jesus the Christ. I had a long journey. In fact, I stand before you guys with over 33 years of recovery. And that's God given. But it took me a long time to arrive at that point where I think that if I combine the first two principles, the essence of those two principles, and I know it's much more than this, but for me, I like to keep it simple, and it means to me that God is good and so am I. And that's really important for me because I didn't used to think that. Like I said, through thoughts, negative behavior, and everything else, I had no acceptance or no connection. But I feel today that I'm plugged in, and it was people like you that allowed me to do exactly that. I'm really grateful. I was talking to a friend today about the experience on cold days like this. I remember it was a cold day like this, and I think it was the timing of it. It was where I was at personally, but I heard the heat kick in, and I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, and I started to cry. And 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 I think the reason why is that I had come to a realization that there are so many things that I should be grateful for that I overlook during any given day. And I try to look at those things. I try to discover those things. What are the things that I should be doing? And through walking prayer and meditation too, that was a time for me to say, thank you, God. I appreciate the heat. You, you know, there's a in the last principle, it says there is only one presence and one power acting as the universe and in my life, God the good. And guys, that is not only a state of being and a relationship between, I believe, my higher power and myself, but it is also the idea that those, in a few words, are what I experience after having a spiritual experience. In the moment of having a spiritual experience, I feel that there is only one presence and power active in my life and in the universe, God the good. And I've had many awakenings since I first came in. It's been a long journey but it's been also a short one in many ways too. But I have a lot to be grateful today, and one of them is Dava. Thank you so much for allowing me to share today, and I hope every one of you has a good January and a fantastic year. Thank you.
Ah, James, what a phenomenal talk. Excellent, very excellent. Thank you so much. And we spoke the other day about the possibility of my interviewing you a little bit. Are you up for that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So again, thank you for some sense of your journey, the difficulty of it, and the grace within it. What has you drawn toward ministry at this time?
Well, with Unity, I've noticed that it's a really nice composite of philosophy, psychology, and spirituality. And all of those are strong suits of mine. I spent 23 years in human services helping people who um well a wide variety of people with different diagnoses. But so I had a psychology, and I also had earned a major in Iowa State University as a journalism major, so I'm into communication. So it was a fusion of what I understand Unity to be and where my strengths lie. And after 23 years of direct care and human services, it was time for a change. I think the average life expectancy in that position in human services is like 3 years. So it was time for a change, and it seemed to fit. It came at the end of a pastoral session too, a pastoral counseling session that Pat Williamson, our Reverend, asked me, because he sees me participate in groups and stuff, and he just asked me, "Have you ever considered being a minister?" So I considered it and decided, why don't we do that?
Perfect. And it sounds like the way that you've explained your life experience, everything has been a preparation for this.
I think it has, and it feels really good, Dava.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Your whole
love,
life has set you up for this.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I don't know where, I don't know where my journey is going to take me exactly all the time, but I know I'm headed in the right direction, and I think that's what's important.
So part of what I hear in your journey is that at some point you began to trust the journey itself.
Yeah, I fell in love with recovery, and I fell in love with spirit.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm wondering if you think back to your early childhood, 6, 7, 8 years old, did you have a relationship with spirit at that time?
That is such a good question. I think I was introduced to church early, but the difference between that is I had always, as a kid even, I had always felt out of step, out of tune, different from other people, not measuring up, not good enough. Um, I had I had feelings of I had concerns of abandonment. So
Mhm.
even when I sat in church as a young kid, um, I felt separate from it. But what happened with recovery and unity is that there are certain steps that we teach and practice that brings me to the awareness so I can feel a part of God's world. And it's probably the most profound and beautiful um experience I've had in my life is that process.
And you have such a beautiful way of articulating that. I am imagining that as you speak, there are people in our community that are going to identify with some parts of that. At times feeling different than, at times feeling out of place, at times feeling less confident about self. And so it's heartening, it's inspiring to hear your story, James. Thank you.
Thank you
So
very much.
at this time, we're going to go ahead and hear music from Christina. So thank you again, James, and we'll come back to a conversation. I have inadequate words to thank you, Christina. Beautiful, very beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's at this time that we go into our donation of love and light. And we do that by taking a breath again, increasingly becoming aware of our body, our mind, our spirit, our sacred heart, increasingly aware of the love and the light that we are. And let us spend a moment with that love and light within. We may be aware it's a very active force. It's moving, it's enlivening. And very gently, we can make the choice to share this love and this light with others. We just relax and open up. Allow it to be shared. Allow it to be shared with anyone that can benefit. We are reminded we can do this at any time with a simple intention to share our love and our light. And so it is. And we will hear from Christina.